Hey, friends. So I spent almost all day at the piano today. I mean, all day, a good 4 or 5 hours. And, it's unusual that I do that these days. Mostly when I get to practice, it's a little bit here and there. And I'm teaching or I'm doing stuff that isn't just strictly about piano practice. I mean, I've spoken on this post a number of times recently about some really cool creative projects, working on some compositions, and I got a chance today to just kind of like go deep, sit with a couple of pieces. I'm playing them on a recital. I'm the accompanist in a couple of weeks, but they're orchestral pieces reduced for piano, tricky little things, and I have a history with this kind of music where I've done this kind of accompanying a fair amount, and my recollection has always been that I'm slightly uncomfortable. Especially, there's a certain kind of music. I talked about this when I played a recital a few months ago. Um, there's a certain kind of piano reduction, like an orchestral piano reduction, that just it's not written that pianistically. It feels like you're kind of just mashing keys, and you almost have to like know what to leave out. It's almost like they just gave you the whole orchestra part, and you have to know what to leave out in order to make it flow on the piano. And I did that work a few months ago when I was preparing for a recital, and I'm doing it again now. And I had this feeling happen that I also recall from the previous time I was doing a gig like this, which is that at some point I work hard enough. I work out my fingerings. I get, and it's kind of great. Like I love the iPad, man, because you can just like insert a fingering, try it, come, and next time you play, it's like, well, that's not right. That doesn't feel right. And there's really kind of like I talked about this too a few weeks ago, maybe less than a week ago. There's something that happens when I get the fingering just right, or at least when I've sat with it enough, where it's like I see the music through the eyes of the composer, through the hands of the composer, maybe. It's like I can feel what they were thinking. I can think, I can perceive the music like them. And when that happens, it's like there's no more nervousness about the music. There's no more friction. It's like it takes all the friction out between myself and the music. And this is something I wish I had understood this as a young person. I wish I had understood how satisfying that feels. Because it's something that took me a long time to be able to really get this. That when the music goes in that deep, all the barriers disappear. It's like there's nothing preventing the music from flowing through me, through my body, through the instrument. It's just this feeling of being suddenly liberated to express the music. And it's a combination of things. It's a combination of really technically understanding it and working it out. A lot of times in my case, it takes me, like I'm working on a Bach 2 violin concerto. And it takes me several back and forths with various types of fingering. I have to start, play it, clock what I'm doing, work it out, decide to do it a certain way. Do that for a while. Change it because it doesn't feel right. Maybe change it back, or maybe change it again. And that process I have learned. I used to think that process was just kind of inefficient. That I should set it and then just stick with it. Like set the fingering and just stick with it because that would make it safe. And what I've learned, I think, there's also some. It's like the privilege of having time with a process like this, because if I start early enough, I have enough time to do it multiple ways and go back and forth and just figure out what feels right. It's like archaeology. I'm excavating the composer's intent from the piece. And it's that looking at it from every angle thing that I do that ultimately allows it to just, it's like it settles in and it's like a rock. It's like I know that I know it. And oddly, or maybe not oddly, but in a in attendance to that, alongside that, other realms of inspiration open up too. Like suddenly my composition just has loads of juice, loads of flow. It's like easy to compose suddenly. And if I were woo-woo about it, I would say I've like gotten the dose of the composer and their energy is infusing me. I don't know if that's actually like technically what's happening, but it's a nice metaphor. It's certainly a nice narrative. It's certainly a nice image of what's happening. And that kind of happened today. It was like I sat with this stuff long enough. I even had a rehearsal with a musician who I'm playing with tomorrow, and it was like steeping in musical awareness to the point where, when I'm preparing for an accompaniment gig or any gig really, especially when it's like complicated classical music, there's just like, okay, I want to be prepared. I want to make sure I'm prepared. And luckily now, my I think I've matured enough that I know about how long it's going to take me. There's not a lot of mystery. There used to be a lot of mystery. There used to be, because I used to just not know what I was doing. It took way longer because I didn't know. It's like I was impatient from the first moment of the process. And so that meant that I never did anything that deeply. I was always trying to get to the next thing to make sure that I had the next thing right. And before I knew it, I was out of time. And it felt like, well, now I can't get there. Whereas now I start in time, but even more than starting with enough time is knowing what to do with that time, because it doesn't take that much time if you're doing it right. It still takes the time it takes, but it doesn't take nearly as much as if I'm impatiently rifling through things and acting as though they're covered, acting as though I'm, clear, but I'm really not. And that feeling, man, that sense of like just knowing that I know, there's nothing like it. It's so satisfying and it's so liberating. And it just makes me look forward to the performances, because it's like, here we go. Like we're gonna deliver this thing. It's gonna be awesome. It's like the whole composer's intent behind the piece starts to show up as creative enthusiasm, and it's like, yes, this is what it's supposed to feel like. So yeah, that is what happened today. And I feel stuff coming through, man. It's like I feel music coming through. I've got this short film that I'm writing music for, and I'm gonna start sharing that at some point. One of the things, I think it was my post yesterday, where I talked about meeting with a buddy of mine and meeting my new collaborator, and kind of just him pitching me on a process that surrounds the creation of the piece itself. And initially kind of skeptical, but then I kind of got to once I actually met with him and heard him describe what he was talking about, I was like, oh, this is a really smart. There's wisdom here, because he's talking about situating the project itself within a context that's energetically sustainable, and so it's like how to tap in to what's trying to come through, and knowing myself, knowing what feeds me in this way, knowing how much I need to do of what I'm describing on this post, this like immersing myself in a composer. It's all part of the creative flow. It's all part of that energetic flow that we need in order to be able to sustain ourselves over the life of a whole project, which might be a long time depending on what the project is. So yeah, it was a nice little dose today that came through. Thanks for watching, people. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.